Good morning. Thank you all for attending the beginning of our normally scheduled Academic and Student Affairs Committee to join us in hearing our update on the Sexual Misconduct Report, which is a requirement from General Board Policy 5-2, which was adopted in July of 2020, which requires us to have an annual joint meeting of the ASA Committee and the Human Resources and Administration Committee. So I welcome you, and with your permission, I'm going to just take a quick roll call as we have no voting business today. This is an informational update. I'll just take a quick roll call and note everyone's presence. Chair of our HR Administration Committee, Regent Howery.
Present.
Chair of our Academic and Student Affairs Committee, Regent Bloom. Regent Bloom, you're muted.
I'm muted. I'm sorry. I am present.
Regent Balducci, absence is noted. Regent Wright, absence is noted. Regent James.
Present.
Regent McCarthy.
Present.
Regent Porth.
Present.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Angelo Simoni, our Senior Executive Director of Student Relations and Compliance, for his presentation today. Angelo?
Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone. Thanks for having me this morning. All right, hopefully you can all see me and hear me and see the presentation.
All right, Angelo, can you turn up your microphone, please?
Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, so we are going to jump right in. As Pam had mentioned, this is the 2021 Public Act 1411 Sexual Misconduct Report Summary for CSCU. In one of my roles, I serve as a CSU Title IX coordinator, and I'm happy to be with you to talk about some of these statistics and overview what some of our campuses are doing in relation to combating sexual violence and sexual misconduct.
Excuse me, Angela, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Your audio is breaking up.
Hold the computer closer. Is that better?
A little bit, yeah. If you can stay close to your microphone, that would be great.
All right. Just interrupt me if you can't hear me, Pam.
Okay, thank you.
Talk louder. Some key things to remember: the presentation satisfies the data sharing component in the Sexual Misconduct Support Services Policy as approved by the Board of Regents. And as you all are aware, I'm sure, spring 2021, our campuses were mostly operating in a hybrid or remote operation state, which may have had an impact on the statistics I'm going to present today in terms of the numbers might be lower for some of the reports on the campuses for this time reporting. Obviously, as you know, if we don't have students on the campuses, there may not be as many reports or disclosures as it relates to sexual misconduct on the campuses. So I just wanted to add that caveat here. Two of the terms that I'm going to go through during this presentation, which might be helpful as a reminder, there's a difference between a report and a disclosure. We'll be talking today about reports. So reports means a document filed by a complainant or signed by the Title IX coordinator alleging sexual harassment and requesting that the institution investigate the allegation. At the time of this complaint or the filing of the formal complaint, the person must be attempting to or part of an individual institution in which they're filing that complaint. And then really a disclosure, this came up at our meeting last year, is really the receipt of any communication of an incident of sexual misconduct that is not accompanied by a request for an investigation or adjudication by the institution. This could be something where a student reported they were sexually assaulted when they were a child or when they were a teenager, and they're just looking for supportive resources that the campus would provide, whether that's health services, mental health counseling, or other resources and accommodations that the college or the university might provide. So in terms of our numbers for 2021, at our Connecticut State Universities, which comprise Central, Southern, Eastern, and Western, we had a total of 43 reports of sexual assault, 5 reports of stalking, and then 14 reports of intimate partner violence, which encompass everything else other than sexual assault and stalking. So folks that are in a dating relationship or any kind of intimate partner violence will be considered under the IPV category. We had 0 reports at our community colleges, the 12 community colleges, and we had 0 reports as it relates to students at Charter Oak State College. And again, these are the student reported numbers. The PA Act 1411 report requires us to report on student data as opposed to employees and other categories of folks at the CSU system. In terms of the breakdown, CCSU, 12 sexual assault reports, 2 stalking reports, 1 intimate partner violence report. Eastern, 18 sexual assault reports, 1 stalking and 8 intimate partner violence. And then Southern had a total of 4 sexual assaults, 1 stalking, 2 intimate partner violence, and then finally Western, 5 sexual assault reports, 1 stalking report, and 3 intimate partner violence reports. In terms of investigation, so the ways that our universities adjudicated or investigated these matters in 2021, which is the reporting year that we're talking about today, there were 21 total investigations of student reports. If you might remember at the beginning of the presentation, I said not all of these reports resulted in an active investigation and adjudication depending on the facts and circumstances after the initial review was done by the Title IX coordinator. Some of these students were seeking supportive resources, whether academic adjustments, academic accommodations, counseling, and wellness services at the universities. But in 4 of these cases, students were found not responsible or there was no violation that occurred. In 10 of the cases, the student was found responsible and either suspended or expelled from the state university. In 1 case, the student was found responsible and given probation and a warning. And there were 4 appeals as a result of these cases, but all 4 appeals were upheld. And as I'd mentioned, some reports did not move to an investigation due to the complainant not wishing to proceed or move forward. And of course, a threat assessment was done based on those individual cases to ensure that there's no harm or risk to the university community at large. As a comparison point to 2020, I added this slide from last year just so that some folks would have something to compare this to. There were 28 reports of sexual assault on the campuses, 7 of intimate partner violence, and 7 reports of stalking for a total of 42 reports involving students across the system. And then it gets broken down a little bit further in terms of what happened at the our Connecticut State universities. In terms of the IPV reports, the sexual assault reports, and again, Charter Oak had none. There's been a push at the system office to update the websites, and one of those websites is the Office of the General Counsel, which now hosts, and I'll show you this in later slides, important information as it results to Title IX and the contacts on the campuses. Well, I serve as the system Title IX coordinator for the 17 schools. Each school has their own Title IX coordinator on the ground, on the campus that students and faculty and staff can go to for assistance and or to make reports. Most of the campuses also have deputy Title IX coordinators that are employed by the campuses that work on ground to assist students with any concerns. For those that might be interested, the 1411 sexual violence reports are mandated by state law, as you know, but they're also posted online. So if you're interested, you could take a look at this website here, and it shows all the reports for all the years that they've been submitted, not just for the Connecticut State universities and the community colleges, but for all public institutions of higher education in Connecticut. This is what I was mentioning before in terms of the website being updated for the Office of General Counsel. We have a Title IX page that talks about the board approved policies and the grievance procedures on how we handle and address sexual violence and Title IX on the campuses. We have a link to all the Title IX websites at our 17 campuses for all the state universities, community colleges, and Charter Oak. And then it lists the contact information for each of those groups in case that a student or faculty or staff member or community member, for that matter, needs to contact the campus for assistance. There's also information with regard to these 1411 reports, which is what I'm presenting on today. And then each of our campuses have campus resource teams that meet on a regular basis to conduct threat assessments of high-risk students and or to meet with students or discuss students that might be having issues on the campus to provide supportive resources, whether that's counseling, accommodations, academic adjustments, and other resources for the campus community. And those are unique to each individual campus in our system. Last year, a question came up about the training that our faculty and staff have that participate in these Title IX hearings, investigations, adjudications, and just in general. We are an institutional member of SUNY SCI, which stands for the State University of New York Student Conduct Institute. So the system office sponsors a system-wide membership, and this offers all of our campuses Title IX training dependent upon what mode of status that these campuses are in. So there's training for investigators that investigate Title IX. There's training for adjudicators, for hearing officers, for appellate officers, for victim advocates, for students that are acting as support resources to the campuses. And this ensures that we have congruency across all the campuses to ensure that all of our staff folks that are engaged in the Title IX process are all learning the same information the same way and ensure that we have consistency across the system, which hopefully delivers a better method of providing Title IX services and investigations, but also reducing liability across the system to ensure everybody gets the same training the same way. So we're very happy with the SUNY SCI model across the campuses. This is the homepage for the CGA where all of our reports are listed. And again, you can search by year and see them for this year. They're posted already, and for previous years, should you want to. There's a lot of information in terms of resources and unique offerings that our campuses have that are specific to each individual location to make sure that this important message of reducing sexual violence on the campus is addressed and that folks are aware of it. In terms of training, partnerships, and resources, as you imagine, there's several things, many things that the campuses do to ensure that students get the resources that they need. Timely care is available at our community colleges and Charter Oak State College at the moment. And basically it is what this says. It is virtual care that's available to all students, whether they're enrolled in one class or full-time credit load or non-credit seeking. Students can receive 12 individual counseling sessions, either via telephone or via video chat. It could be relating to sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking. This is offered scheduled and on-demand medical visits. So students that are having medical issues, they can meet with a licensed provider, whether that's a nurse or APRN, and they have the ability to have prescriptions sent into local pharmacies for certain types of drugs and medications should they need those. There's no requirement for insurance. There's no copays. Each community college and Charter Oak student has access to this, whether they're on the ground in Manchester or they're across the country in California on vacation. This is 24/7, 365, 24/7 operation, which is good. One of the other things in terms of equity, making sure that there's diversity. Some of these providers have the ability to speak Spanish and other languages, so students that are not fluent in English are able to search for and speak with providers that best meet their individual needs and whatever they're looking for in terms of is helpful. In terms of training that the system office and CSU offers our constituent units, we had a grant previous years that has since sunsetted, but we also have kept up with a lot of the training that we want to make sure that our campuses are up to date on in order to meet the needs of Title IX and really ensure best delivery of these services on the campuses. So some of the topics included preventing and responding to intimate partner violence on campus, the difference between that and stalking on campus, determining dominant aggressor and intimate partner violence cases. And this was specific to our campus police and security forces on the campus to ensure that they're able to accurately investigate who's the aggressor and who should be arrested in these domestic violence cases, which are often sometimes convoluted and not as clear as to who necessarily would be the aggressor. And then again, supporting student survivors with disabilities and making sure that there's wraparound services and resources available for those students. As you might imagine, a lot of these trainings were done either hybrid or virtual through the COVID pandemic, and now we're bringing them back to on-ground trainings in person with a hybrid component for convenience of other folks that needed to attend, which is helpful. All of our students across the 17 are required to participate in Not Anymore, called Not Anymore. It's an interactive training program that engages students and trains them on Title IX and VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act requirements, what sexual misconduct is, what it is not, how to report these issues and these instances of misconduct on their campuses, who the Title IX coordinator is on the individual campuses, and talks to them about what resources are available in the geographic area of the campuses. All of our campuses are in different areas of the state. They have different resources, and this training is tailored to that individual geographic location that students in Norwalk know what the resources are, as opposed to students in, let's say, Northwestern Connecticut, which might have a different resource or different third party to assist with off-campus issues. Another program that we've instituted across the system is called Bringing in the Bystander. This is a train-the-trainer program. So the goal is to train as many trainers as possible, and these trainers go out to the campuses and train faculty, staff, and students how to interact and disrupt problematic behavior that could eventually lead to and how to intervene in safely in risky situations and build empathy for survivors of sexual violence. So this is another way where we get students involved and to hopefully, break the chain of, these types of issues moving forward. We have over here over 2,000 students we're training, bringing in the bystander program through 2022. And those are actually trainers that have gone into the communities to train our individual student populations on how to do this work, which is very important. Was asked last year that I show some of the resources that our campuses have, so I added a few slides just so that you could see some of the highlighted portions of these. This is a resource at Eastern Connecticut State University. As I mentioned, they have the campus response teams. Eastern has a sexual assault and interviolence response team, SAVE-RT for short. And these are cards and flyers that are printed and handed out to faculty and staff on the campuses and provided to students, so students know where to seek an advocate, what the Title IX process looks like, where they can get medical assistance, how they can contact law enforcement, where they can make a report, how they can request accommodations, where they can receive counseling. And it also delineates who has confidentiality and who doesn't, so students know that when they go to report to someone, if someone is a mandated reporter or not. So our campuses have really tried to streamline and make easier for students to know where to report, who to report to, and who holds confidentiality on the campuses, which I think is very helpful in getting victims to come forward to report these incidences that occur on the campuses and beyond. Here's another one in terms of, this is Eastern Know Your Title IX Rights. These are activities and interactive resources that they have available to students and how to access them and where to access them from. This is Central Connecticut State University. They were doing a red flag campaign. It's a public awareness campaign to address dating violence and promote the prevention of dating violence on college campuses. And again, this uses the bystander intervention strategy, which encourages friends and other campus community members to say something when they see the warning signs, which are the red flags planted all around campus as it relates to dating violence in a friend's relationship. And not just Central, but many of our campuses have engaged in similar campaigns. In terms of partnerships, all of our campuses have local MOUs with community sexual assault and domestic violence programs in their area. And then again, the CT Coalition Against Domestic Violence, they partner with many of our campuses across the state in terms of training. There's a 24/7 hotline in both English and Spanish open to CSU students and employees. There's free and confidential counseling that either is hosted on campus or off campus, depending on the convenience for the student. Prevention programming and awareness campaigns. They will do hospital accompaniments for students that might need to get rape kits or to proceed to court to apply for protective orders or restraining orders. So they are a great resource. This is one of the resources at Gateway. One of the flyers hanging up in the hallway for students and faculty and staff in terms of what those resources are, the English and Spanish hotline. And then this is a breakdown of the Connecticut geographic areas in terms of the Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence, the different areas that service our campus communities, depending on what area of the state we're in. So each one of our campuses has a relationship with these local providers to service our students really 24/7, 365, times in areas where the campus is not necessarily open or closed for the holiday break or for the summer session. And most of these are open 24/7, Again, English and Spanish, and they provide counseling and the resources that I just mentioned. And they're free, the services, and they're confidential, which is helpful, I think, to a lot of our students. But it's good news that the whole state is covered with regard to that. In summary, CSU has a comprehensive Title IX plan, which talks about the ongoing training for students and employees, both virtual and in person, the community partnerships that I just mentioned, counseling and advocacy services. The counseling departments on all of our campuses are extremely important, and the partnerships we have in the local communities where the campuses reside really assist us with the ability to service students that need counseling that the campus might not be able to meet in terms of demand. And there's generally a pace triage and consult between the system office Title IX coordinator and me, and our state universities, the community colleges, and Charter Oak, which is very important to make sure we have a uniform approach to handling and addressing these cases to reduce the prevalence of these incidences on our campuses. So with that, I'll take any questions. I'll turn off my screen so I can see everyone's face, if that's helpful.
Thank you, Angelo. Does anyone have any questions for Angelo? Regent Howery.
Hi, good morning. Angela, thank you for bringing forward some of the resource information. I think that really enhanced the report, and I appreciated seeing how the different campuses are posting information. Just one point, there's a substantial difference in the size of the campuses, and there's a substantial difference in the number of incidents reported. Are they roughly relative to the size of the campus population, the 4 residential?
Yeah, so that's a good question. In terms of the way that the campuses were operating hybrid and more had online classes as opposed to on ground, the residence halls were not completely filled or populated. So I think that had that kind of affected the numbers one way or the other. But I'll also say that, Central in previous years and Eastern more recently had some concerns related to Title IX, which I think might have increased the amount of reports that they receive as compared to some of the other state universities. But I would say, generally speaking, the numbers are relative. But also, I think that we've done a good job in ensuring that students feel comfortable reporting these instances on the campuses and allowing for multiple avenues for students to report should they have experienced, sexual violence or sexual misconduct on the campuses, whether it's an anonymous report, whether it's through Maxian or Simplicity, the online reporting form, or going directly to the Title IX or the Deputy Title IX coordinator. And really, our policies have been adopted to ensure for the ease of student reporting, to ensure that we can address those issues really at the forefront and make sure that we're doing what we can to reduce these numbers on the campuses.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Regent McCarthy.
Hi, good morning, Angela. First of all, thank you. That was a great presentation and a complicated task that you've got in front of you. I lost track of counting how many different programs and different approaches you had, but whatever that number is, you have to multiply it by 17 locations, which just makes it mind-bogglingly complicated. And undoubtedly, as you've been saying, there are examples of great work going on, and clearly an amazing amount of thought has gone into this. I was wondering, though, if there's a formal assessment project that's at work here. I mean, I'm sure that you have challenges both in terms of staff and budget about what to do and where to focus your resource. Do you have access to any group that can come in and do a formal assessment? Or do you do that yourself to help guide you in setting priorities and focusing on the most effective approaches?
That's a good point. We are watching closely. I work under Ernestine Weaver in the Office of the General Counsel. So her and I are watching very closely the federal Department of Education regulations that are going through the pipeline of being revised for Title IX under the Biden administration. So we are going to look very closely at what changes, if any, come out of those and then adopt our policies and procedures at the campuses to meet those regulations. But interestingly enough, we did have a consulting group come in, Eastern had one come in within the past 6 months to a year that did a formal audit of their Title IX policies and procedures and operations. And some of those spoke to the way that our policies are structured, where there might be some areas of opportunity to make some adjustments to make them more student friendly. So Ernestine and I are in the midst of going through that report and seeing what makes sense in light of the federal regulations coming out to make sure that there's revisions done or any kind of adjustments that need to be made. We also meet with our campus folks regularly. They're the folks on the ground doing the work, the Title IX coordinators and the student affairs folks. So we want to make sure that we have open dialogue back and forth to ensure that we're making sure whatever adjustments we make to policy, translate to operational procedures that can be instituted on the campuses. That's the last thing that we would want to do is have policies that don't really speak to the campus needs. So we're very attuned to that and aware of that. But your point is definitely taken, and I agree. The audit or the review that Eastern did that touched on our system-wide policies is something that we're definitely looking at.
Yeah. And no, what I was asking about really was the kind of what sounds like the audit that Eastern did, and whether there's a regular schedule of audits of each of the units, or if they are commissioned when there's a perceived need.
Yeah, it's a good point. And that's something that I know Ernestine and the system leadership are talking about, a more regular schedule. So I'm sure there'll be more information on that.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
And do you weigh in at the time of campus accreditation? I don't think you do.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure we're a part of that process for Title IX.
Yeah. I mean, lots of other parts of the university are subject to, and those of us in academics think of it as a burden often, but subject to formal review and assessment by an outside agency. And it is a burden, but it also can be quite effective. But it sounds like there's no outside agency that demands that you go through this process.
Not that I'm aware of, but again, we try to be as proactive as possible,
Yeah.
whether it's an internal audit or the review that Eastern did. We're happy to build off of that.
Okay.
Regent James.
Oh, thank you very much. I echo my colleagues' commendation of the comprehensiveness and the quality of the efforts. And I actually have a similar question with respect to the partnership agencies that you're using. I'm familiar with the ones in Lower Fairfield County and really understand the standard of excellence of the services that they provide. Do you have a good communication process to make sure that these outside organizations are providing the level and quality of service that you need for your students? Is there a good communication flow, or how do you assess the continued effectiveness of their work?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. Good point. So the campuses do have MOUs, the memorandums of understandings, with each of the local providers in the geographic location. And we really rely on the individual institution to maintain, develop, and address and assess the relationship they have with the local provider. But in terms of more than the MOU, in terms of what the individual service is meeting, other than hearing about concerns and issues, we don't necessarily hear about anything other than that. So at least to date, I haven't gotten any complaints or issues or concerns that the local providers aren't meeting the campus needs. Especially because I'll say for our community colleges, there's such a strong reliance on them, because the community colleges are open set hours. They're not open generally on the weekends or nights. So there is a strong dependency on these local providers to meet the need of our students. So there has to be a push to publicize and make aware of these different resources on the campuses. And I'll give credit to our Title IX folks and the deans of students on the campuses at our community college that really push this information out to the students to make sure that they're aware. But to couple with that too, timely care has really met a need that we had at the community colleges, in my opinion, that necessarily wasn't as convenient as maybe someone going physically to a local provider, especially during COVID. So someone could be at their house in New Haven, not leave, and then get telehealth services or get a prescription called into the local Walgreens without having to leave their house or getting out of their pajamas. So between timely care and the local campus resources that are in the community, I think we've done a good job enveloping and what some of the campus's needs are. But I'll also say that the on-campus presence of our counselors at the community colleges and state universities is very important. And none of these timely care or the off-campus resources are designed to replace them. It's really just to supplement the demand and need that we've seen post-COVID in terms of mental health concerns on the campuses for all of our students.
Thank you.
Well,
Professor Sasanker.
Thanks. Maybe I missed it, but I was wondering, was there any comparison with sort of national rates or state rates of sexual violence? I mean, any report is kind of startling. It's hard to tell, where we stand in that landscape. And then just my second question is, I know that you gave us lots of links for the more comprehensive reports, but is this presentation that you've given us today, is that available?
yes, I will make it available to Pam and she can disseminate it as part of it.
Thanks.
Professor Sasanker, it will become part of the minutes of this session and posted on the website.
I will say that any report, although concerning, and I do agree with you, I take, and I think some of my colleagues take, pride in that our students feel comfortable reporting on our campuses. There was a time not many years ago across the country where students did not feel comfortable reporting instances of sexual violence to campus administration for fear of retaliation or for fear of that the report wouldn't be taken seriously. So the mere fact that our students are reporting and feel comfortable reporting, I think is a good thing, because then we can give them access to campus resources, off-campus resources, and make adjustments and accommodations as we see fit. That CGA website that I posted shows all the reports from public and private institutions across actually all of Connecticut. But there hasn't been any formal comparison done between our 17 or 16 schools and other schools across the country in terms of reports and disclosures. This 1411 report is statutorily mandated and it speaks specifically to students. But that's something that we could look into possibly doing in the future. If that's something that's helpful for this group.
Thank you.
Go
Regent Bloom.
ahead.
Regent Bloom.
Thank you. I had two questions. Two of the statistics struck me in different ways. One, that there was 0 reports from the community colleges this past year, and is that? I mean, it seems like something's missing here.
The reporting at the community colleges is on par as compared to previous years. Keep in mind that with COVID, the campuses being closed and only open online only has an effect on on-campus reports. If students aren't physically present on campus, they're not going to be able to report any instances, theoretically, of sexual violence, or at least in the same way that they normally would if the campus is open. Even in year 2020, the numbers were extremely low on the community college campuses. So me, as someone that's done this for years in terms of compiling these reports at this point, seeing a 0 at the community colleges with that back set of information is not concerning in terms of, ongoing trends or issues. There's definitely been disclosures. I do want to make that clear. So the disclosure is, someone goes to a campus resource, whether it's counseling or the dean of students or the Title IX coordinator, saying that, they might have been sexually assaulted or, there was some kind of sexual misconduct that occurred. They're looking for campus resources, whether it's counseling, medical services, academic adjustments, but those are not included in the statutorily required report. We can only count the reports. So to say that there's been 0 reports at the college is one thing, but we've had disclosures where the campuses have helped students to address the concerns that they might have reported to the campus resources. I don't know if that's helpful.
It is. And the second item, there were 4 appeals, you said, and all were upheld. Who hears the appeals?
It would
When
depend
there's
on, yeah, no, that's a
I'm
good
sorry.
question. So it would depend on if it occurred on, if the hearing, it depends on who does the hearing and and where the incident occurred. So our state universities have different structures based on their campus makeup and staffing levels. And then, the community colleges have different makeups as well. So I can tell you that the same person that decided the case originally at the hearing level would not be the same person that's doing the hearing. Or doing the appeal. The appeal is a neutral third party, whether on the campus level or at the system office or part of shared services that would do the appeal to make sure that whatever decision was rendered is neutral from the original decision of the hearing body. And those folks are trained as well in these Title IX cases. There's specific training that needs to occur in order for someone to engage in the Title IX process, whether investigating, adjudicating, or hearing appeals.
And this has become somewhat of a controversial area in some universities now.
Yes, but the good news is, I think for CSCU, is that our policies and procedures through the Eastern audit by the consulting firm have come back and said all of our policies and procedures are legally sound and appropriate. So we do have some ability there to feel secure in that. But that's why we are watching the federal government in terms of the Department of Education, see what they come up with recommendations or changes to the Title IX statutes and what we need to do to make changes as a system.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Regent Porth. You're muted, Regent Porth.
Sorry, thank you. I appreciate this comprehensive report also. I only have one quick question as a follow-up to Regent Bloom's question. When you say that 4 appeals were upheld, do you mean the initial decision was upheld?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further questions, I want to thank Angelo for his presentation today. And at 10:12 a.m., I will call this joint meeting of the ASA committee and HR committee to a close so that Academic and Student Affairs can continue their work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Regent Bloom. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I hereby convene the December meeting of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Call to order. The first item of business is approval of the minutes of the October 7th meeting.
I believe we need to establish a quorum again.
We don't have, okay. The
I
secretary may I ask the secretary to call the roll again?
Yes. Regent Bloom.
Present.
Regent Howery.
Present.
Regent James.
Present.
Regent McCarthy.
Present.
Regent Porth.
Present.
And Regent Sasenka.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 7th meeting?
I will move it.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Any discussion, comments? All in favor of approving the minutes of the October 7th meeting?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The October 7th meeting minutes are approved. The next item, the action item, the strategic vision report. Dr. Pritchard.
Good morning, Regent Bloom and members of the board. I'm very happy to be with you today to present a new strategic vision for CSCU. I will not read you the staff report, resolution, etc., but I do want to call your attention to a few things as background, and then happy to answer any questions that you may have. As the report and the resolution tell you, we have not looked at these goals since 2012, the very beginning of the CSCU system, and so thought both given that a decade had passed and that President Chang was entering his second year of leadership, it was time to take a look. And so spend some time this summer looking at other systems, looking at the strategic plans for our 17 institutions, and other documents that we've produced over the course of the last several years to provide us with some language for an update. I want to first tell you what has not changed. So what has not changed is the mission statements, either for CSCU or for any of our constituent units. That is an activity we could do at some point, but that was not the activity that we undertook this summer. So I hope that was clear in the documentation that you saw. But what we did believe was ready for a refresh was the CSCU vision statement, as well as the key areas of focus and goals. And so that's what you have before you today. And these updates would then be used to support the strategic planning that takes place with each of our institutions. I will also mention that part of the reason we had sustained the goals for so long is because they are, in many ways still very relevant to what we're doing. The original 5 goals that the board, or vision and goals that the board established, focused on a successful first year, focused on student success, affordability and sustainability, innovation and growth, and equity. And you'll find in the recommendations that we put before you today that we have 4 of those goals. Equity is no longer a standalone goal, but should be integrated into all the work that we're doing. And that's why there is not a standalone goal there. And we also have added a goal on systemness as a way to continue to pull us together in system efforts and to really call out the importance of bringing together these institutions for the betterment of our students, our institutions, and our state. So the goals will provide a broad umbrella under which the strategic plans of the individual institutions will continue to function now. And as they come up for redrafting of their own strategic goals, this is what will anchor their thinking. And we did spend time with this, with the institution presidents this summer. Some of them even aligned their current strategic goals to this and found that they well captured what they were striving for. So now you have before you 4 new, slightly revised goals that do just speak to new activity and new areas of focus. And so, again, those are, excuse me, I'm sorry, I still have a lingering holiday cold. Student success, innovation and economic growth, affordability and sustainability, and systemness. And so that is what you have before you, and what's asked of you is to consider that and move it forward for the full board's consideration. We could have written lots and lots of goals underneath here, but again, want to be clear that obviously the real work of implementing these goals happens at the local level, and so is embedded in the strategic plans and the objectives and the tasks and activities that are incorporated in those local strategic plans. So let me stop, Regent Bloom, and see if you have questions or comments. And again, I just want to say my thanks to those who have given us some initial ideas on how to reshape this, to refine it, to bring it up to 2022 from 2012. So.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Comments, questions? Regent James?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to commend you on integrating the equity goals into each of the goals, but I also want to just say that we will have to be very mindful at each local level of ensuring how that gets adapted and supported, given the fact that there is a fairly broad range of where the particular challenges are or opportunities at each local level. So it belongs integrated into the entire system, but the challenge is to implement it successfully and ensure that there is, the continued progress is a little more complex, and I just wanted us to be aware of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Other comments?
Regent McCarthy has his hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you. I want to echo Regent James' thanks for the work that's gone into this. I think this document does an amazing job of being clear, complete, and concise. And those 3 attributes are very hard to put into one piece, but I think you've done it. I'm going to get back to the concise in a minute. What I like about this in particular is the way in which it links the past, present, and future. I think that's very powerful. It shows a continuity over time, over a long period of time that many people don't realize existed. So that's good. I think that the selection of a small number of key areas of focus is powerful, and the group's particularly to be congratulated for that. It's always hard to pick a truly finite list of key things. So that's good. And I also see these key areas as highly relevant to the future. And now I want to go back to where I started and said it's wonderfully clear, complete, and concise, and then get to Regent James pointing out of one aspect of it. It seems to me that it's so concise and so clear and so complete that the assessment of this strategic vision has to focus clearly on every one of those sub bullets under the goals, because the fact is, if you added them all up, which I haven't done, there are probably a dozen altogether, maybe 3 or 4 under each, 3 or 4 subcategories under each. So I think it's really important to follow up on what Regent James said, to make sure that all those sub areas are attended to. But I think that's possible because, it's only a few pages, which is really wonderful. So congratulations. I like it, and I can see it working very well.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Professor Shashankar has her hand up as well.
Yes, I see that. Yep, this is Professor Shashankar.
Yeah, thanks. So speaking again to the conciseness, I wonder 2 things. Whether you could say a little bit more about this goal for social justice is listed as a core value. The bullets don't quite get to how those bullets achieve a vision of social justice, or even what that really means for our system. But I don't know if there's a little bit you could say. I suspect it has something to do with the data analysis, but I'd like to hear a little bit. And then the other is that I really like to see that in the current mission statement, certainly for the CSUs, liberal arts is emphasized or mentioned at least. In the goals, though, I don't see a sort of way that we can assess ourselves in terms of making sure that that is its integrity is maintained. And in particular, I think that the second bullet under goal 3 might push in the other direction, this return on investment model, if it is implemented in certain ways. So I'm wondering if you could just speak to those 2 things just a little bit, so I can understand.
Happy to. Thank you. And I want to think a little bit more about whether there's some tweaks around your second one. Your first question about social justice and as core values, I think is really well taken, and certainly the data analysis is a place where we can look at that. But I think it is also about marketing CSCU as a place that values those things, that it values civic responsibility and public service, community engagement, and social justice. These are words that are run across the strategic plans of the 17 institutions, certainly, and across their vision and their own individual marketing. So we wanted to capture that this is a high value for the system as a whole. And so I think, again, it is about marketing who we are and what we believe in as a system. And those are certainly core values. And so bringing those things out in our marketing a bit more is something that we should do, certainly. And then again, I think the the data analysis capacity is key. We cannot today do enough to analyze and speak to the impact that we're having. And so that's work that we certainly need to do. I would also say that though the words are there, there is certainly other places in the plan where those values could be implemented and brought forward. But I do hear you, and I just think that I can maybe call that out a little bit more in the language, and certainly it will be broader in the strategic plans. The liberal arts and sciences piece, again, I'm just thinking those words are missing perhaps, but there is a real focus on degree programs in the innovation and growth piece, and certainly when we work with the business community, they're asking very much for the skills and abilities and transferable skills that come from a liberal arts education. So again, I think maybe to your point, Professor Susenker, that maybe we need to find a way to use those words a bit in the language we've put in here. But certainly, those are skills and knowledge that comes from those programs. And I think that's also key as to why you'll see in the goal for innovation and economic growth that it does speak to the creation of knowledge and not just to the career-minded aspects of some of the work that we do. But I will take a look at both of those items and see if I can refine the language, make small tweaks to the language that are in line with what's already written, but call those things out a bit more. Both very, very good and important points.
Other comments?
Regent Poor.
Yes.
Rick, you are muted, sir.
It's twice in one day. Sorry, everyone. I just want to echo my colleagues. I think this is a really good set of mission and vision goals. And in particular, I'm excited about some of what's described in Goal 2, the innovation and economic growth, and then Goal 3, affordability and sustainability. I think a continued focus on cost and return on investment for our students, and ultimately any debt that they incur, is really important part of our mission as public universities and colleges. And I appreciate seeing that spelled out in here to the level of detail that it is. I'd say one other thing. I don't know if it belongs in a vision statement, but as we learn more, at least as I learn more, it becomes more and more clear to me that we do excel compared to many other institutions of higher education in relation to these issues of cost and debt. And to the extent that we are different from others, we should make that a goal also, that we let the world know that this is a place where students can have access and can generally afford a real good education. Now we have to make good on those goals and stay true to those goals. But assuming we do, we should also make it clear how we differ from most others. So that's my comment. Thanks. Really good job.
Thank you, Regent Poor. And to your point, again, I think the marketing of our high quality and lower cost is a piece of what we need to be doing.
Yeah. Thanks.
Other comments? If I may, I'd like to add a few things also. One, what we're talking about is combining access and excellence. And maybe we should say that explicitly in this document. And the excellence includes, I think, Professor Susenker's point about the excellence includes the abilities in the liberal arts and sciences. It can't be otherwise in the university. So that was one comment I had. And the second is, I think it's important to communicate this document throughout the system. I think this is not, I mean, we have it, it's on, but I think it's more particularly BOR system. This is changing. This, it's much more emphasis now than there would have been in 2012. I mean, obviously I wasn't here in 2012, but just in the past year, we have put more, and I think systemness becomes more important as we have economic challenges for the system's budget, etc. So we have to look at some of these questions in a more holistic way. I think it's reflected in this document. That's why I think it's important to get that this document be seen by others than the board and the board committees and the people who are directly involved in this. I think this has to go to the campus leadership. It has to go, I mean, in a serious way, and to the campus faculties and the campus students.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Those are both wonderful suggestions. I love the bringing together access and excellence. If I could say it, I will also write it in here in some way, and hear you loud and clear about making sure that this is disseminated in a way that reaches everyone in our community, but also externally, because in many ways we've suggested the role of the community in supporting our system and being partners in the work that we need to do on behalf of our students. These are all very helpful comments, and I will do my best to integrate them into a slightly revised version to bring forward for the full board.
Regent McCarthy, I think, had a
yeah. I just want to elaborate or point out something that Regent Bloom just said about the importance of making sure everybody knows about this. I mean, one way that can be done without changing a word is just internally to condition ourselves to use this very short, very concise, very clear document as a touchstone to a lot of what we write, as a kind of introductory comment, just to remind people every time they see a statement or a proposal or a report that this document is real. It's not a vision statement that we mean to just finish and file away. So anything we can do to make this continuously real to the whole community would be very helpful, I think.
Great, thank you.
That is exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, that's exactly,
Yeah.
Jim, what I was thinking. Any other comments? Can I have a motion to approve the document subject to the editorial changes we've talked about?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second, the appointment of the Martin Guides to the American Savings Foundation endowed chair. Provost Cathurio, do you want to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Central Connecticut State University seeks the approval for the appointment of Mr. Martin Guides to the American Savings Foundation Endowed Chair in Banking and Finance. Mr. Martin Guides has decades of experience at the executive level in the banking industry, received the Lifetime Achievement Award for the Hartford Business Journal, and was named to the Business Hall of Fame by Junior Achievement of Southwest New England. President of Central Connecticut State University, Dr. Zulma Toro, has endorsed the recommendation to appoint Mr. Martin Guides to this position. Provost Costellus will speak to the proposal and introduce colleagues as needed to comment and answer questions.
Great, thank you so much. With me, I also have our interim dean for the School of Business, Dr. Lisa Frank, to answer any questions too. But just as a little bit of background, this endowed chair was founded in 2003. and is focused on real world banking and finance by educating our students, developing programs that address the needs of the banking and finance industry, and as well as engaging in local community outreach with business leaders from the banking, finance, or financial service sectors. What we're asking here today to receive approval for this appointment, and I think as you just heard, that Mr. Martin Geitz has a great background and will be a truly beneficial to our students, as well as to engaging with our faculty as well. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions that any of you might have as well.
Are there any questions? Regent McCarthy.
Not a question, but a comment. And this actually ties back to what Professor Sasenko commented on a few minutes ago. In reading Mr. Geitz's CV, which is incredibly impressive, a couple of pages of senior banking positions, as just stated, I actually focused on the beginning of his career. He has a bachelor's degree, joint bachelor's degree in German literature and political science.
Yeah.
And those two degrees set him on the path that he's achieved. And I suggest that somewhere, and I'm sure Professor Sasenko agrees, somehow weaving in a phrase about his undergraduate degree in German literature and political science might not be a bad idea, might send a message. So
I think this is very important. I think this is, I mean, I saw the same thing. You know, having been an undergraduate major in political science at 100 years ago, it clicked. But the liberal arts that we talked about earlier, the liberal arts are really a key to to what we're trying to do. So
That's a great point. Thank you.
I do have a question that, and it's probably a question as a regent I shouldn't ask, but I apologize for asking it. There's a great windup here about how strong a record he has. Why is the appointment at the assistant professor level?
You know, that's a great question. You know, that's something that we've worked with our HR on regarding looking at aligning the years of experience to be comparable to the years in rank. And it is a set amount that's aligned with the endowed chair. And really the focus has been more on carrying the title of the endowed chair as opposed to the level of the professor. But it is something we can continue to explore if HR and the union would be willing to use even more years of experience to go to the next rank. We're happy to look into that piece because he does have a great record. But usually when you're looking at the comparable standards for the years in rank, it's usually goes to the assistant professor level.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. He's been in the field since 1981. So I look at years of experience as being, 40 plus.
I don't disagree, and I'm happy to continue. You know, I can have the conversation with our HR and the AAUP union, if regarding carrying a higher title.
But I don't understand. What was the basis? Is it the lack of academic experience?
Yeah, when we're appointing faculty according to the contract, and when you don't have the direct experience as an assistant professor level, then comparable standards are utilized.
All right, so I'm going to say something very blunt here. If that is the case, then we have a major problem, because it means we can never appoint a senior practitioner to a senior faculty position, because they, by definition, don't come with the usual 6 years as an assistant professor, 6 years as an associate professor. And I think that is completely contradictory to all of the great ideas and ideals that we just set out in the vision statement. And I think it's frankly, it's kind of offensive for Professor Geitz to be appointed as an assistant professor at this stage in his career. And I can tell you from 10 years of personal experience, at Johns Hopkins, where he got his undergraduate degree, were he to be appointed to the Carey Business School with the terms that are included in this endowed chair, he would be a full professor. No question.
I think that's, there's an incongruity in saying that somebody who's appointed to an endowed chair, which is a special title in itself, is coming in as an assistant professor. I mean, that's exactly the point that was, Jim, you articulated, I think, perhaps better than I did, but it's exactly the point that was troubling me. If we have an endowed chair, that's a special situation. It's not, it's not, quote, the ordinary appointment. And, we're going to want to recruit people of this caliber at various times to bring them into the campuses.
And if I may, Ira, this does not apply only to business. If the modern day James Joyce was named a full professor, or named to an endowed chair at Central, naming that person as an assistant professor is embarrassing.
Or even
I just want to make a clarification that it's like, I hope you're not reflecting that this is on us. Like, we're also bound by the AAUP contract. So I welcome the conversation and would love to be able to hire more senior practitioners from the field, not just in business, but otherwise. I also welcome the ability to be able to hire clinical faculty like others do as well, which is currently prohibited in our contract. So I welcome the discussion to have more flexibility within the current AAUP contract.
I was speaking to my fellow regents because I think it is an important issue for us. If
Agreed.
we're agreeing to personnel policies that preclude practitioners in fields ranging from art to literature to business, etc., from being recognized for their great accomplishments that would be of incredible value to our institutions.
We need a provision for a waiver to be able to do this in some way. I'm sorry, Regent James, I apologize. Your turn.
I was just going to say, this sounds like a much more comprehensive and deeper conversation that needs to be put on an agenda for a future meeting with the appropriate people at the table, because we can't resolve it here, but I think it's a very important point and worthy of further discussion with this committee and whoever the appropriate representatives are in terms of these kinds of decisions. But it is a very important topic. I just don't think we're going to resolve it today.
I think you're right. If I may assert my prerogative as chair, I will put this on the agenda for a future, because I think it is. I mean, I think we need to have a way of doing this. And it's, as Regent McCarthy said, it's not just business. It could be in medicine. It could be in any field, the health area, or James Joyce.
If we could resurrect.
If we could bring him back. Okay. At the moment, we have this recommendation to act on. So pending further study of this issue by the committee. Is there a recommendation to, is there a motion to approve this?
I will move it. I will move it. So moved.
Second.
Regent McCarthy, were you going to say,
No, I just said second. That's
oh,
all.
okay. Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Rest, we have informational items. Unless there is a comment on the informational items, we have the Dr. Pritchard. We have the refugee and asylum report update.
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to just provide a brief update if you're ready for that. I'm ready.
Are we ready? Any other comment? Okay. I guess Dr. Pritchard, we're ready.
Wonderful. Thank you again for allowing me to join your meeting this morning. I just want to provide a quick update. As you saw, members of our refugee initiative group at your last meeting, we are still continuing to meet. We've spent several meetings with our refugee resettlement agency partners and representatives of all of our schools, talking about barriers to enrollment. And we've identified a number of those and are starting to get additional information, figure out solutions that we can employ to address those. We're now turning our attention to barriers to success and looking at why students may not continue. And we have a meeting actually this afternoon, bringing together both the representatives who have been serving on our refugee initiative, but also their colleagues in the admissions departments and student affairs departments to come and talk with us more about what they are doing already that we could be replicating and building on across our institutions. So we're continuing to having very fruitful conversations. The group gets larger every time we meet. Though we have one representative from each campus, we have several campuses who have several reps interested in doing this work. The relationship building has been wonderful. I have to say the resettlement agencies have been so appreciative of the opportunity to learn more about our schools and the work they're doing, to have a point of contact. We had a recent example this week where something happened with a student who was enrolled in one of our community colleges. They went back to the resettlement agency in a panic, and the resettlement agency was able to reach out immediately and start to get the issue resolved. And it has been resolved all within the course of a week. That, 6 months ago would have probably resulted in that student not being in school any longer. So really excited that people are starting to learn about the community resources that are available to them and drawing on them certainly when needed. We'd love those things to never happen, those problems to never happen, but glad to know that we have a network now available. I also just want to mention that Provost Couturier has been talking with members of the ESL Council that is representative of our schools to identify ways in which small investments could be made that would really ease the burden of enrollment. And so we're still looking to determine what's going to be the best use of those resources, but excited to be able to put some small investment in place this semester to try to address some of those issues. Likely going to be around the need to take ESL courses and the prohibitive cost of that for people who are just arriving in Connecticut. So we'll have more to report there as we go forward as well. And really hoping that what we'll come back with in the next several months is an additional list of things we need to be doing to support these students. So, we started out with a broad menu of things that the campus leaders could do to support things like, waiving fees, providing reductions in housing costs, et cetera. We're finding that there's a lot more that's needed besides those things. We had the opportunity at our last meeting to hear from a young woman who is working at a resettlement agency, but who graduated from Central recently And she couldn't say enough about the group that was available to her on campus to support her in her academic life, but much more so in her personal life and in the transition to college. And so we just think there's a lot more that we need to do. The other thing that I'll mention is that though this has started as a refugee initiative and we're sticking to that, I don't think there's a meeting that goes by that we don't talk about the fact that these barriers exist for many of our students. Whether they're undocumented or underdocumented students, or they're first generation students, or they're refugee students. And so believe that as we talk about these barriers, that the solutions that we would propose will be beneficial for large numbers of students, not just those who are in this instance coming particularly from Afghanistan and the Ukraine. So wonderful work. Every meeting is uplifting and collaborative and exactly the kinds of things we should be doing under systemness. So very appreciative of the opportunity to share that with you and look forward to more concrete reports for you going forward.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Comments, questions? Regent Howard?
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the work on this. I think it's a great initiative. It's super important, and supporting our students and then expanding that out to supporting all the students who need that kind of assistance is exactly what we should be doing. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Regent Haley.
Any other comments? Regent Senker. Ms. Senker.
I mean, I'm always here smiling and nodding, but I just want to make sure that I say thank you also, because it's so appreciated, especially since the FUT brought this forward, and it's running so much further than I could have expected. So great work.
No further comments. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second. Discussion, controversy, any comments? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you all very much for your participation today. I guess we will not have a meeting before the holidays, so I'd like to wish all our members a happy holiday season, joyous holiday season. We have the board meeting, but we won't have a committee. I appreciate everybody's work and efforts, and have an extra drink on me during the holiday season.
Thank you. Happy holidays to all of you.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Okay.
I believe we're still live. Pam?
I'm sorry. Oh.
I believe we're still live.
We should turn. We've adjourned.